A very good afternoon to all the students of class 10. Today I'm going to take on the poem Fog, written by Carl Sandburg. Carl Sandburg was an American poet, and he was also a biographer, a journalist, and an editor. He won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, 2 for his poetry and 1 for the biography of Abraham Lincoln. So we carry on with the poem, a little bit of geography integrated in the poem here, because it talks about the fog and the comparison that is there between the fog and a cat, So it's a short poem, but interesting, and great imagery has been created. Okay. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on. Now, for the children of the hills, the sight of fog is something very common, but people down in the plains and all, they rarely get to see this beautiful, picturesque scene, when there is fog descending or ascending. It's amazing, and it really brings you close to the lap of nature, that how beautiful things are. And down in the plains, now people experience, and they keep talking about fog, but down in the plains, because of the excess of pollution there, we refer to the word there as smog. Smog, it is a contraction from both the words smoke and fog, and that is smog, So that is when there is extreme pollution. Okay. Now the difference between fog and mist. We usually say when we are when we write also, we say a bank of fog. Okay. And what is the difference between fog and mist? Fog is denser than mist. And what is fog basically? It is the condensation of water vapor. So these are condensed droplets of water or ice crystals on higher altitude and in the lower atmosphere. And fog is very, very thick and visibility is almost nil, whereas mist is not so thick and visibility to a certain extent is there. So that is the difference between fog and mist. And smog, as I told you, it is when there is intensified pollution or other impurities in the atmosphere. That creates a smog. Okay, the fog comes on little cat feet, silently. So the fog, when it descends or it ascends or it moves, it rises, it settles in a particular area, then it comes very silently. There is no noise at all. Just as a cat creeps in very quietly, stealthily, stealthily, stealthily. So the fog also comes very silently, just as a cat comes without making any sound. It sits looking over harbor and city. It stands for the fog. Sits looking over harbor and city. It settles or it rests, and spreads, and it's lingering around over harbor and city. Harbor is a place where ships take shelter. So harbor here stands for sea and city. So it means over sea and land. On silent haunches and then moves on. Silent haunches here. Haunches, we sit on our haunches, we say, like, people in the villages usually sit in a little rustic manner. Then we say that sitting on their haunches. But here silent haunches means that it is shifting slowly, moving slowly, drifting slowly, and then moves on. And then this fog moves on. And because as soon as there is a current of air or with the wind, then it seems to drift along. So The poet here has compared the coming and going of fog with the movement of a cat. A cat comes on its silent feet and it makes no noise. So does the fog. The fog also comes very silently, noiselessly. A cat keeps sitting on its haunches, and looking around for food or looking around for an opportunity, to get something to eat. So does the fog. The fog remains still at one place and keeps looking over the land and sea. And then finally, it moves on as quietly as a cat does. The wind makes it move along or drift along. So it's a very, very short poem, but very interesting, because we've seen fog so many times, but we've never tried to bring out its similarity or this kind of a link up of the fog with the cat. Okay, so fog descends or ascends or move or covers and it hides things and gently drifts on with the wind. Okay. What does Sandberg think the fog is like? He thinks the fog is like a cat. How does the fog come? The fog comes silently, noiselessly, just as a cat does. What does it in the third line refer to? The word it in the third line refers to the fog. Does the poet actually say that the fog is like a cat? Find 3 things that tell us that the fog is like a cat. Yes, the poet is trying to say that the fog is like a cat. It comes quietly like a cat. It stays for some time like a cat looking all around. Then, just as the cat moves away, the fog also moves away. Does this poem have a rhyme scheme? No, this poem does not have a rhyme scheme. It is written in blank verse. Find metaphors for the following words and complete the table below. Also try to say how they are alike. The first one is done for you. Storm. Just as a storm comes suddenly, so does a tiger. It pounces over the fields and it growls just as a storm roars. Now the train. The train goes on tracks, okay? So it runs on fixed rails, and similar to that is tradition, which we have been following since generations. Okay, the next is fire. Fire, we can metaphorically take it as a serpent with that hissing sound, and how that sizzling sound, hissing sound is there. School can be associated, we have a temple of learning, So school can be associated with temple, and just as in temple, noble things are taught, we learn lessons for a lifetime. Similarly, in school also, we learn lessons for a lifetime. Home could be, in other words, metaphorically used as a shelter. It saves us from all weather conditions. It saves us from, various dangers and threats. Okay. So only because of the reason that the fog does not make a sound, and so does the cat, the poet has compared the fog with the cat. So in short, the poet describes the coming and going of the fog. He compares the going of the fog with the movement of a cat. As a cat comes on its silent feet, then it makes no noise, so does the fog come. And looking over the land and sea, it settles for some time, just as the cat sits for some time and looks all around. And then it also moves away silently as it has come. So the poet has very beautifully used the metaphor of a cat for fog. And it's just that imagery we can imagine. So the poem is very short, but the imagery is intense when you can actually imagine it, okay? Just as the fog moves away with a gust of the wind. and the beauty in that fog, the beautiful, it creates a picturesque landscape. All right, the next question. Which figure of speech is there in line 3? It sits looking. Well, it stands for the fog, and because a human trait has been given to the fog, it sits. That means it is a personification. Next question. What does over harbor and city imply? Harbor and city implies that the fog is looking over both the land and the sea. It lingers on, it stretches over, it remains there for some time and then moves on, just as stealthily as a cat moves away. So that is all in the poem, nothing very difficult, but you can always, let your imagination run wild and loose when you see various things, and you can compare it and see how strikingly beautiful things can be. So that is all in the poem. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you.